Yo, what is going on, guys? It's your boy Linny, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about Raceland suspension, specifically for the 7th gen Accord, so 2003 to 2007 models. I believe they're the same on the website for the sedans as well as the coupes. Don't take my word for that, look it up on the website, but I'm pretty sure they're the same. But other than that, let's get right into it. So, it's been about 2 years since I've bought these coilovers. Alright guys, let's talk about some pros and cons first, and then I'll get into detail on installation process, how hard it was to put in, and how it rides, ride quality, and then after that we'll wrap it all up. So first of all, one of the biggest pros of having Raceland suspension is that it's super inexpensive for the base model ones, not the Ultimos or anything else. For the Accord, there's only the base model ones. So for those, it's $375 shipped, and that's free shipping. So really inexpensive for Racelands, and for what you're getting, it's not a bad price. It lowers the car, as you can see here. It's actually gotten me a decent drop, and these aren't even maxed out. These are I want to say that's a 3-inch drop, and they're not maxed out yet. When I'm maxed out, the tuck in the front is actually down to about here, and then the tuck in the rear comes down to about here or so, where tire is like touching the fender right here. So that's a big plus, is the drop. So if you're looking for a drop for really cheap and you don't really mind about ride quality, go ahead and grab these Racelands. They're great. They've lasted me for 2 years so far. One thing I did notice about the Accord ones is that they don't have a preload spring. So that means that there's no secondary like collar that has a preload on the a secondary spring, and that kind of makes it hard, because when I maxed out my coils, I went all the way down and the spring got loose. So having that preload there is actually really helpful, because your spring doesn't get loose. And I thought my suspension was blown because it was just every time I was going over bumps, the whole spring was just moving up and down. So there's not much dampening there at all. So I thought I was just jiggling on the ground like this, but in fact, if I raised it up to this height, it was perfectly fine. There's no problems with it. So that's one thing to look out for when you're looking for coils of any type, is that if it has a preload, or if when you maxed out you're still taut on your spring, you still have that spring rate. So that's one of the cons. Another one of the cons is that there's no adjustable dampening, so you don't have a knob on top to adjust your dampening or anything like that. But I didn't really have that much of a problem with it. I mean, they ride a bit stiff, but they're still pretty good. I don't mind it. You can really feel the road in it, and it makes for a good ride. Now that we've talked about having, the pros and cons of having these Racelands, inexpensive, drops you but doesn't have dampening, and doesn't have the spring preload, let's talk about installation process and how difficult it was to do. So for me, I'd never worked on suspension before, but if you go and learn how to do stock suspension, you will be able to do these no problem. The coils, they're shorter than the stock ones, so the real trick is taking out the stock suspension. It's really tough because all of the parts are really long, and on this car specifically, that 7th gen Accord, the rears are really difficult to take out, and the fronts are pretty decent. You have to have somebody standing on the rotor, or you have to unbolt your control arm so it drops down. I did neither of those things, so it was a really tough process for me to take everything out, but putting them in was a breeze. I just had to pop them in. Since they're shorter, you can adjust the length and everything. I just made them maxed out, and then I put them in. So the first time it was like slammed and I couldn't get it off of my jack, so after that I had to raise it up in the front and the rear quite a bit, and I actually didn't slam it until about midway of last year anyway for Stance Wars, and that's when I maxed out my coils. But other than that, the process wasn't too bad. It took me 14 hours just because I was being really dumb. But if you guys watched that install video on my channel, it's cringy. It's awful. But yeah, and so installing wasn't too much of a pain. Adjusting, you just have to keep taking off the wheels, putting them back on, but you get really good at it, so it's good practice. So there's that. And then finally we got to talk about how they ride. And you know what? They don't ride too bad. They're good quality for how much you're paying for them. You're paying like under $400. They're shipped and everything, And they have really good customer service as well. So if you need anything, just like contact them and they'll respond pretty promptly. But just ride quality is not bad. Like I said, they ride a little bit stiff, but for me, that's good. It's not too soft, it's not too hard, so it's still, it's good. You can feel the road really well. There's not much play if you're not maxed out on these. Like I said, the spring has play when it's maxed out on these ones specifically, so like I said, it's different for everybody's car. For this one, it was just like, wow, I'm bouncing all over the place. But if they're like, if you raise it up to a point where the spring is actually like stiff and it's not just bouncing around, it rides really well. It doesn't have much play. You can go everywhere, you can feel the road, you feel really connected to the road, and it's just overall pretty good. For looks, it's amazing. For your first set of coils or whatever, if you're on a budget, definitely go for Racelands. They're great. If you're not on a budget, I'd say like, if you can do it, if you can swing it, go for some TNs or some what are they? Some BCs, some TNs. Those are really good coil brands, and they have the adjustable dampening depending on which set you get. So most of the time, if you're looking for that, that's definitely something to look at. But for me, for my purposes, it was pretty primo. And that's it for my comprehensive review. After 2 years of riding on them, it's been really great, and now we're swapping over to the next suspension. Stay tuned for the next video on the Accord, because you guys will see what I have in store for it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this helpful at all, make sure you hit that like button, and if you want to keep up to date with my content, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.